What's good, everybody? I'm BPC and welcome to Competitive Origins MMA. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you can be notified on future videos. And if you haven't done so already, hit the like button on this video, please. Now, the topic of this video is the real reason why the UFC released Yoel Romero. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But first, I want to point out that I'm wearing a Get It Done Competitive Origins t-shirt. And you can get it done at competitiveorigins.com. If you type in promo code MMA17, you'll get 10% off your order. Now, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the channel so we can provide a better experience for you guys at home. You've been competing since conception, whether you're competing against yourself or others, Competitive Origins. Now, the Cuban-born fighter by the name of Yoel Romero was an Olympic, or I should say is an Olympic silver medalist. Now, he broke into the UFC in 2013 and went on an absolute tear, beating 8 straight fighters, including former middleweight champion Chris Weidman. Now, he was basically in talks to fight Michael Bisping for the UFC middleweight title, but Bisping passed on him and decided to go the way of GSP. See, a GSP some might refer to as a greatest of all time fighter. He was the 170 champion and retired as champion and decided to come out of retirement to go for the 185 gold. Well, GSP got the title, and after he got the title, Weidman, actually I should say Whitaker, who became interim champion, eventually became the champion because GSP basically relinquished the belt. He had no interest in fighting Whitaker, and there we have it. It becomes Whitaker, the current UFC middleweight champion, going up against the Cuban-born fighter Yoel Romero, and it's a pretty close fight. I think Yoel was going to win the fight until Whitaker was able to secure a takedown in the last round, therefore getting the judges in his favor to say he was the winner. Well, he continued on from there and actually got an interim title fight with Luke Rockhold, who was also a former champion who Michael Bisping had previously beaten. So here was this opportunity to step up, go for the interim title. Well, Yoel missed weight. He was not eligible for an interim title, but he still took on Luke Rockhold and he knocked out Luke Rockhold. Well, that's 2 champions now he's officially knocked out, or I should say former champions. So even though he did not win the interim belt, he was still given another opportunity to face Whitaker, since apparently he was the best competition out there. And they went and did battle, and Whitaker got a split decision victory over Yoel. Now, I felt Yoel won that fight, but apparently 2 out of the 3 judges did not agree with me, and Whitaker retained the belt. So Yoel goes on to fight Paulo Costa. Now, Paulo Costa, like I said in a previous video, is like Yoel Romero from the stance that they have a body shaped out of clay. Muscles on top of muscles on top of muscles. The only difference was that Paulo Costa is a lot younger than Yoel Romero. See, Yoel Romero is in his 40s and Paulo Costa is nowhere close to his 40s. So it was interesting to see how old school would match up with new school, and it was an absolute brawl. And I'll show you a little bit of the footage right now. I had a great time watching that fight. I recorded it myself because I was actually at the event, and I scored it for Yoel Romero. The crowd scored it for Yoel Romero, but the judges scored it for Paulo Costa. It is what it is. Moving forward from there, Yoel gets another title shot. Now you're going, well, how did he lose and still get a title shot? Well, a lot of people felt that he won that fight. And Israel Adesanya, the current UFC middleweight champion, said, you know what? I'm calling you out. Everybody's scared of you. You're the boogeyman. Let's do this. And everybody was excited. Like, Yoel is getting called out by the champion. Like, yes, and here we have Yoel getting another opportunity to win a title. This could be his last opportunity. And Dana White even said this. He said, after this fight, I'm not going to keep giving Yoel title shots. He has to go ahead and win this one. And, it was exciting leading up to the fight. They even did a breakdancing battle in which Yoel got the winner of that, won that battle, but now it's the war. In the octagon, was Yoel going to step up and take the belt from Israel Adesanya? And the fight was kind of a dud. There was not a lot of action. I think Yoel had seen the previous fight with Robert Whittaker against Israel Adesanya and realized that if you run it at him, he's going to just, retaliate and knock you out, so he kind of took his time. He waited for Israel to approach him. And Israel's a very smart fighter. He's not just going to run in and attack you. He thinks, okay, this guy has a lot of power. If I were to step to him, there's a chance that I could get hit. So I'm going to wait for him to come to me. I'm going to let him throw his shots, and then I'm going to counter. Well, that's pretty much how the fight went. Now, Yoel did, run at him with a flurry, and it was effective. I think it got him the win in that round. But maybe he should have did that all 5 rounds, and he could have got the belt. But he didn't do much of that, and Izzy just stayed on the outside and just kind of kicked him from the outside and hit him here and there. And basically, the judges, it was almost like there were 2 losers in the fight, but they gave Israel the win because he did more damage, with the leg kicks. And we've been waiting for Yoel. What's Yoel's next move? Well, all of a sudden, unexpectedly, Yoel has been released from the UFC. The news broke out. Ariel Helwani, I believe, was the first to report this. And everyone's going like, well, why did Yoel get cut? He's still sick. He has a lot to bring to the table. There's a lot of other middleweight fighters that he can fight and put on really great shows. And, we're kind of wondering what's going on. Well, after the Hermansson Marvin fight, Dana comes out and he says, well, Yoel's getting up there in age. Yoel is 43 years old and he's lost 3 out of his 4 fights, so we decided to cut him. Now, this apparently, according to Dana White, the UFC president, was not due to contract negotiations or a disagreement or anything of that sort. They just felt it was in the best needs of the UFC, that they were overinflated, and that they are planning on cutting over 60 fighters. Now, Rachel Ostovich was another fighter for the UFC who also has just been cut. She had lost 3 fights in a row, but she had nowhere the resume as Yoel Romero. So you're going, all right, well, did the UFC cut him because of his age? Dana did mention his age. And it's like, well, Yoel's not absorbing a lot of damage. He's not taking a lot of blows. He's not, getting TKO'd. He's not having the fights stopped early. So it can't be because of his age. Physically he's like 28 years old. But age-wise, obviously he's up there, but still his body doesn't actually display his true age. And so that was kind of suspect. He said he lost 3 out of 4 fights, but there are fighters that have lost way more than that and still have stayed on the roster. And like I said, he should have won the Paulo Costa fight. He should have won the Whittaker fight. So therefore, those three of those losses, 2 of them, or I should say only 1 of them should really be considered a loss. And the Israel fight was just kind of like nobody did anything. So like, did he really get beat? Yeah, he got beat, but like, it wasn't like he was completely outmatched. It was just that nobody wanted to fight in that fight. So that's kind of where we're at. So what's the real reason? And you think about it, and it's like, okay, well, is the UFC not interested in pushing older fighters? Well, if that were so, they wouldn't have given Yoel Romero 3 out of, basically he's had 4 title shots. He had Israel Adesanya, he had 2 against Robert Whittaker, and he had an interim title fight against Luke Rockhold. And these weren't a long time ago. These were fairly recent, and he was still old back then. So it's like, what is the reason? And I'll tell you what the reason is. The reason is Yoel Romero has not displayed the ability to get the judges on his favor to win the championship fights. And he has not displayed his knockout ability in these championship fights. Now, Yoel has a known history of knocking out a lot of fighters, but for some reason, it's just been the random fights, which happen to be the championship ones, where he's not knocking out people. So you're going, all right, well, he can't, on Dana's mind, he can't get the belt. We can't put the belt on him, but we don't want to leave him in the rankings, because if he's going to still be the top ranked fighter that he is, you're thinking, all right, well, who does he face? It's like, all right, well, does he go down the list? Well, he beats Jared Cannonier, he beats Marvin, okay, well, he beats Till, all right, he beats Jack Hermansson, all right, he beats Derek Brunson, okay, he basically beats everybody else in the middleweight division. He beats them all. He beats everybody. So how can anybody move up to fight for the title if Whitaker is the only person to, to get by him, and Israel so far has been able to get by him? Who else really, can say they deserve the title shot if they're all going to lose to Yoel Romero? Now, if they keep losing to Yoel Romero, the UFC basically has to book Yoel in a title fight, and they're not interested in that because they've been booking Yoel in a lot of title fights, and it hasn't been going the way of Yoel Romero, so they can't keep pushing that. They have to, get somebody else really fired up, put a marketing campaign against another fighter and then bring him into the title shot, so therefore they can sell pay-per-views, get people interested, Now, Yoel is always going to have a bigger fan base than a lot of these other fighters. Obviously all those fighters I just mentioned don't have a big fan base as big as Yoel. But, the UFC just doesn't want to put him in a title fight, so the only thing they could do is release him and blame it on his age and the fact that he's lost 3 out of 4, even though when you really break it down, if he had lost those fights, then the UFC wouldn't have really kept continuously given him another opportunity to fight for the belt. So there you have it. Go into the comment section below and tell me why you think Yoel Romero was released from the UFC. If you agree with what I basically have shown as to why I feel he was released by the UFC. And tell me where you think his next move is. Apparently Bellator is not interested in him. I think ONE FC is not interested in him either. And I guess from Bellator's perspective, they don't want to keep bringing like the UFC leftovers into the organization. And it's really odd because Gegard Mousasi going up against Yoel Romero is the best fight they could possibly make right now. And I have Yoel beating Gegard. So I guess they don't want to bring him in and dethrone their champion, and now they have a 43-year-old champion, but he doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon, so I don't see why not bring him in. It's kind of a stupid reason. We don't want the UFC leftovers. Now, bare knuckle fighting has said Yoel would fit in with us, and that's great and all. I'd rather see Yoel in MMA and not just doing bare knuckle. People are kind of seeing bare knuckle as the bottom of the barrel right now. Then that's not like just talk trash about them. I'm just saying how people are viewing it, There have been some UFC fighters that have made the journey to bare knuckle and have done all right for themselves. But I would really like to see Yoel get a middleweight title in the field of MMA. So, like I said, go into the comment section. Tell me, how you feel or why you think he was released. Tell me where you think Yoel might end up next. And PFL, I think it was. PFL is not interested in Yoel either, which is kind of crazy because they just signed Verdum, and Verdum doesn't have the fan base as Yoel, nor does he have the recent exciting fights that Yoel has displayed. So it doesn't. None of it makes sense whatsoever. It almost seems like everyone's working together to push Yoel out. But we'll see. Times might change, and they might get desperate and decide to sign Yoel because Yoel equals dollar signs. I'm BPC. Go to competitiveorigins.com. Type in promo code MMA17 to get your 10% off. Have a great day. Take care, guys.